Namaskar. In this episode of Dil Se, we're going to move away from India to another part of the world, which is very, very problematic. You all know that on October 7, Hamas attacked Israel. That's October 7, 2023. 10 months down the road, that conflict is continuing. It has huge ramifications for the global community. Not just the global community, it has ramifications for that particular area. The Middle East. It has ramifications on what is happening in Iran and what Iran will do. It has ramifications on Hezbollah, on the Hamas itself, the ordinary people of Palestine. 41,000 people has been killed at this time, of which 39,000 are from Palestine. About 110 journalists have been killed, out of which about almost 100 are from Palestine. Dislocation. There are hundreds and thousands of people who've been dislocated. Every family, almost one in every family are dislocated or moving out. Prices of oil are going up. The Israelis have attacked in Iran a member of the Hamas, a very important political leader, killed him. Iran is retaliating. Yemen with the Houthis are also retaliating. Where will all this go? It's very dangerous for the world. And if this escalates, I think we will be living in a world after the Second World War to be the most dangerous time in the history of the world. So we have three super experts to discuss this with us, some of them friends of mine. And let me introduce you to Saeed Naqvi sahab, old friend, and 60 years in journalism, 60 years, entered in 1964 with the Statesman, moved on to the Indian Express, and I don't think there is hardly any leader in this world who you have not interviewed.
From up to a point, yes.
Yeah, from Fidel Castro to Nelson Mandela to Gaddafi to Henry Kissinger to Benazir Bhutto to Hamid Karzai. I can go on, right? And you've been wherever the war has taken place. You've been out there reporting from the war site, and so you have a huge wealth of knowledge which you'd like to share with us. And with the people of this country. We have with us another extraordinary person. It's something that I'm amazed as to how you are here. Dr. Waiel Awwad, Syrian, came to India to get a medical degree from Maulana Azad, got a medical degree. How you got involved in journalism, I don't know, but I guess you'll tell some of that to us. Stayed here for the last 30, 40 years. You're here now. 30 years, reporting for almost every Arab outlet in the world, giving them news as what's happening. You've been in the Iraq war, right? You were an embedded journalist with the Americans. You got captured in Iraq. They almost killed you. I don't know how you got out of it. That's another story. We'll have another day for you to tell us. And you know, therefore, a lot about this particular area. We have Dr. Cherian, and of course, Dr. Cherian is a specialist in international relations, geopolitics, strategic affairs, a PhD from the JNU, which is much vilified nowadays. You are report from the Global South. You've been focusing on reporting from the Global South. You have held several editorial positions. Your particular focus is Middle East and South Asia. So we have experts in the field who are going to tell us what's happening there. Saeed, tell me. What's happening there?
Well, this particular thing has now gone on for 10 months. Nakba happened. Nakba is the catastrophe when the Palestinian state was set up in 1948. When villages were emptied of Palestinians, people don't even talk about it, and it was the beginning of a kind of genocide state. Then there were a series of such events, but this one is carrying on and on and on. Why? The reason is that no one seems to have the power to stop Benjamin Netanyahu, who is riding a tiger from which if he dismounts, the tiger will devour him, because on his right are Ben Guver and name the other right-winger in his cabinet. They are saying no peace at any price. So therefore, no ceasefire. So that he is using as an excuse to carry on this war. Now, if he stops, if he calls for a ceasefire, he is no longer he has got cases against him, serious cases against him. So that's one part. The other is his belief, the biblical belief. Amalek, people whose women, whose children, whose animals can be destroyed legitimately, and you are doing it in the name of God. That is the kind of messianic.
He's now saying that, look, I'm going to wipe out Hamas.
So
that's what he's saying.
This is the other. Now, I'm coming to that, Kapil. He has said that unless he wipes out Hamas, there will be no ceasefire.
Correct.
Now, the Hamas, everybody is agreed, is not going to be wiped out. Therefore, there shall be no ceasefire. Now, what is actually going on? And if I might venture that this is the last hurrah for the Palestinians. I'll tell you something. I have interviewed each one of them.
Netanyahu including.
Huh?
Including
Netanyahu thrice.
Thrice.
Yes. And I've been in that country, and I've had a little powwow with Rajiv Gandhi on that issue. That is not relevant here. But the fact of the matter is that Caspar Weinberger, Defense Secretary to Reagan, he said something. He described Israel as the unsinkable aircraft carrier for us. Unsinkable aircraft carrier for American interests.
That continues.
Now that was when the America was at its peak. There is a peculiar, you see, the sole superpower moment came in 1990, 91, when the Soviet Union collapsed. That lasted up to 2008, when the Lehman Brothers sank like the Titanic, and then hundreds of companies collapsed. The Americans on the decline now. Now people are looking at a multi-polar world in which BRICS has gone ahead of G7 in every possible figure. So you are looking at America underwrote every tantrum of the Israelis historically. Now they know that after this tantrum, the Americans are not in a position to underwrite it. So this is the last time. We have to play the last die. This is the game going on. It is declining American power, the fear of God inside the Israelis that after this, they will not be able to stand behind us. And so what do we do? So we actually do not know where this particular ship is going to be docked.
Dr. Awwad?
Well, I agree fully with Saeed's analysis on this issue, and I start from where he ended. Actually, it's 100 years of saga that the Palestinians have been subjugated or all kinds of atrocities and have been expelled out of their countries. And if you know that the 75% of the Gaza Strip population are actually Palestinian from other parts of Palestine, where their villages have been uprooted and they have been kicked out of their houses, and they have been accumulated in the most concentrated
occupied
countries. Absolutely. So therefore, the mission was to create a state of Israel at the cost of the Palestinians. So because there is a concept in their Bible, in their old Torah, in their mindset of those right-wing Zionists who are believing that this is the land without people. So they have been treating Palestine as a land without people. So ever since then, we can see the tragedy of the Palestinian happening at a different phase of their life. So now what's happening in what Netanyahu is dragging this war into a regional war. He tried to bring the American into the war, but he failed at the first place when he attacked the consulate of the Iranian in Damascus, which is against the Geneva Convention and all the laws of international law. Then again, he killed Ismail Haniya inside Iran, where Iran is going to retaliate because that is the job. So Netanyahu is playing the Simpson, what we call options, where he will be destroying not only Israel as a state, he'll be destroying the whole region because it's the only state in the Middle East or in West Asia which having a nuclear weapon. So if he wanted to drag Iran, Syria, Iraq, Yemen into a regional war, as long as he can survive in office, that's the only option for him. So he continued to finish Hamas or finish resistance of Lebanon. In fact, if you read history of the region, you will know that as long as occupation exists, these resistance forces will exist. So Hezbollah will not go. Neither Hamas will go. These are ideology because the people have the legitimate right of defending their own territories. And that is what international has given us, all of us. So you cannot just deny the Palestinian right of existence.
They are being also supported by Iran. They are being supported by Hezbollah. They are being
This is what we call the arch of resistance.
By the Houthis now.
Yes, it is actually, and everybody saying the condition they are putting is stop this war, we stop the attack on you. So the two-state solution, which they have been propagating the whole world and selling to the world for the last 76 years that they are victim of the Arabs and the Arab want to kill them and all. Now they have changed. The whole image of Israel has been changed internationally.
But isn't it true that the Americans themselves are talking about the two, and the Saudi Arabians?
That is only talking, rhetoric. There is no question of it because it become an apartheid regime. You know it very well that they have created walls inside Palestine where there is no way of creating a Palestinian state. And in fact, if you're focusing mainly in Gaza Strip, let me remind your viewers also, see what's happening in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. It is the East Jerusalem which is the main target for the Israelis because they wanted to expel the rest of the Palestinian out and they wanted to reoccupy the West Bank to bring it under Israel, one state. There is no question of a two-state solution. So therefore, they will be focusing.
This is a non-starter.
It's a and the war will continue. There is no question of stopping the war. Even the Israelis opposition and the people of Israel are accusing Netanyahu of creating hurdles that he is putting the impossible condition to stop this war. So he doesn't mind even sacrificing the Israeli prisoners under Hamas because that is the objective of him is to continue this war in Palestine for two reasons. A, to give the rest of the world that Israel cannot be attacked. Israel is the strongest country in this region. It is the hegemony of it. And that is why the American foreign policy, it is centric in West Asia for two things. One is the oil and second, Israeli-centric. So they wanted to make sure that Israel is a dominant hegemonic power politically, militarily, and
economically. If Israel
economically.
cannot succeed, what's going to happen if this continues? The oil prices are going to go up.
Yes.
Right? It's going to affect the world economy. As it has affected the Israeli economy. In fact, the rate of growth is now negative in the Israeli economy. It has affected the Palestinian, it has affected Hamas, it has affected people living there. How is it going to help the Americans? And how is it good for anybody, for the global community to allow this to continue?
The Kapil, if we look at the taxpayers of the United States, they're spending $10 billion annually to Israel. Israel sent $100 million to the senators, to the Congress of the United States, and they buy them, and then $10 billion is siphoned back to Israel. So they know that all the weapons, all the equipments are from the American, and they are still giving them. Biden, despite the rhetoric, and he's publicly saying we want to end to this ceasefire, he doesn't want. He's taking full advantage of the American election because he does not want even Kamala Harris to come to power.
John?
Yeah. So one should never forget that Israel is a settler-colonial state. It's also an issue of colonialism and imperialism involved here. I recently wrote an article for the India International Center in which I argued that, the Europeans have had they always focused on the so-called Holy Land. From the time of the Crusades, the Crusaders were the first to colonize the region. And they colonized the region for many centuries. And people rose up finally. Saladin the Great led the Arabs against the Crusaders and drove them out. But the Europeans never lost their interest in the region for many reasons. And the British imperialists, of course, as everybody knows, I mean, they were crucial to the creation of the Zionist
But
state.
that's history, John. I'm talking about what's happening today and what you think is going to be the future in the next few years to come if the war
What has
doesn't stop.
happened is, I mean, it is one of the greatest tragedies, definitely of this century. And what is happening is genocide. For more than 42,000 people have already been killed, the majority of them being children and women. By the end of last year, the Israelis had dropped weaponry on this strip, a thickly populated strip with a population of 2 to 2.5 million. Bombs that were equivalent to 2 Hiroshima bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb. That was in December. Since then, they have been using 500-pound bombs, 1,000-pound bombs supplied by the Americans. So you can imagine the damage these bombs, American-supplied bombs, have caused to the people of the Gaza Strip. Not only that, since October 8, the Israelis have grabbed more land in the West Bank, using the Gaza fighting as a pretext, and more than about 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank itself. And there's no way that the Hamas can be militarily defeated. Netanyahu knows it. And many commentators are saying that the only man who is against a peace deal today is Netanyahu. Even his defense minister said that this is a time for a peace deal, because even the Israelis need breathing space now. Forget about the poor, suffering Palestinians.
The problem, as I see it, and I want your response on it, that 2.3 million residents in Israel have been dislocated themselves, and 100,000 Israelis are internally displaced. So how will Netanyahu's policy last in this context? Because there's going to be ultimately an internal revolt. And so I don't think, despite what you say, that Netanyahu is going to last.
No, but unfortunately, even today, 60 to 70% of the Israeli population support the war in Gaza. They want total destruction of Gaza, ethnic cleansing of Gaza, which they have not been able to do. But as long as he has the support of the the Jewish population for the war in Gaza, he can continue. And the Americans. You saw the kind of applause Netanyahu got when he went to address the Congress. Every 2 minutes, Democrat and Republican congressmen and senators were rising up and cheering him. So can you imagine, this is a man who...
Do you think, I pose a question to you, do you think that the extent of economic loss that this is caused within Israel is of no consequence as far as the Netanyahu is concerned?
This is you see, the whole point is, it is beyond logic, because I'll tell you why. Who controls the whole thing? It is not Netanyahu. Who controls Netanyahu? Not once upon a time it could be said that the Americans say stop it, and they would stop it. Only Reagan once tried that. Otherwise, no one has. The fact of the matter is that even on that figure of 40,000 and 50,000 killed, Lancet has worked out that these are direct hits in which people have died. We do not know what is lying under the rubble. We do not know the secondary, in other words, out of hunger, out of lack of medicine.
That's separate.
186,000 people have died. This is the latest.
52% are women and children, and 43% are males and above 18.
Now, what is much more important is something that came out of Ben Gvir's mouth when he was trying to attack the defense minister, Gallant. He said, "You had promised us that you're going to throw the Hezbollah to the Stone Ages, and you have gone and done that. North Israel has gone to the Stone Ages." This is the first admission by the right wing of Mr. Netanyahu that things are not well in the kingdom itself. North Israel has been, people are leaving, the people are living in camps. It's not on the visual camera. The Western media is not reporting it. There's huge Ben
That's why I
Gurion
was saying
Airport.
I don't think it can last very long.
Ben Gurion Airport is chock-a-block full with people leaving.
As I said, this is becoming an extensional war for Israel because they realize and
That's
recognize that is they are unable to end this war. And you cannot, for the rest of the 76 years, you're telling the world that you are the victim. And if you look at the map of Palestine, you will see prior to 1947, it was called Palestine. Now, out of the whole of Palestine, there is only 7.5% under the Palestinian control. So who is the victim and who is the... So we do not seriously look at the history perspective to apply it in the contemporary history. Because here what we are facing the problem is that this country wanted to have not only Palestine, it is from Euphrates to Nile. And that is the plan. Even if you go to the Knesset of the Israelis, even their coin they are making, it is written in the map. It is from Sinai to Euphrates, which means Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Sinai Peninsula, plus northern part, 1/3 of Saudi Arabia is for the greater Israel. So if that is the objective and that is the mission, then we are just at the first phase. If it's 100 years, it will go for another 100.
You must understand that we are living in a different world, as I said. It may be the first phase today, but they just don't have the strength and the American support to carry it forward because American power is declining. And therefore, the global community will not allow that to happen. And now there is a proposal, as you know, of Qatar and of the US and Egypt, and the peace proposal, and that's being discussed.
But that's
now.
what Netanyahu is putting the hurdle. Even his own political parties are accusing.
But Anthony Blinken said that we are almost there.
Anthony Blinken, sorry, Anthony
Blinken, no one believes.
Let me just put this word. Anthony Blinken has no personalities. He himself came to Israel and he said, I'm a Zionist. He didn't come on behalf of the United States. He became as a Zionist to present his own credentials.
Netanyahu handles Blinken and Biden, like he plays them. So therefore, it is an impossible, this particular
He says that
Secretary of State.
A bridging, so-called
Yeah, that's what
bridging
he said.
proposal.
There's a bridging
But what
proposal.
does the bridging proposal mean? That means the Israeli army will stay in the Philadelphia corridor, which is next to the Egyptian.
But as you know,
part.
Egypt has refused that
Yes.
because
So-
the Egyptians are there now, and a lot of people from Hamas are actually refugees in Egypt itself. And this Philadelphia corridor
Yeah,
is not
so
going to
that
go.
deal is
That deal is
you see,
out.
One
That
of the
is out.
great obsessions of the Americans and the West by and large is to somehow isolate Iran. They haven't lost perspective of that. Isolate Iran, pull down Hezbollah, and this arc that is of
Arc of resistance.
Arc of which includes the Houthis and Hasbal Shadi in Iraq and the Syrian resistance. Inco somehow managed them. Meanwhile, somehow get the Saudis, a deal with the Saudis going through what they call the Abrahamic Accords.
Yes.
This is a dream of them gone sour because it is not happening. Why is it not happening? They have gone. If you give me 2 minutes, I'll go through a little bit of history. People forget that in 1945, when did Israel happen? 1948. But in 1945, the original King Saud and FDR Roosevelt met in a ship called the Quincy in the Suez Canal, where they signed 2 days of they bartered away the world. That is when the oil, that we give you these guarantees, you give us your guarantees. In other words, the Americans and the Saudis were like this, ahead of the Israelis. When I used to be at Princeton, I used to ask my professor, why this? How can the Saudis get away with all this? He says, Saeed, you don't know. There's a very cavernous arrangement with the Saudis. We can't. Now, the Saudis under Chinese auspices have gone and shaken hands with Tehran. This is something that the media doesn't talk about. They've shaken hands. So therefore, the American dream of having the Abraham Accords with...
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. And in which we are also involved. Because in G20, with that Abraham Accord was... Because we were going to give this corridor, this huge line, through Egypt, through the West Asia, through Saudi Arabia.
Let me just add some. The Abraham Accord has been signed, but it's a non-starter.
Right, sir.
It's been signed,
That's
but
true.
it's a non-starter because Saudi Arabia was supposed to recognize Israel.
Let me
That's not
conclude
going to
my
happen.
argument 1 sec. Saudi Arabia has joined the global south. It is now part of BRICS, global south. This is something that the Israelis in their present makeup cannot, their Ashkenazis cannot do. Unless they decide to harmonize with the region, which is the only option left to them.
Yeah.
This is something, and it is not said. This is not said. Because at the end of it, what you have is something, a rump of the Israeli state, with all its vision gone to smithereens. Yes, the Hamas and the Jerusalem and the Palestinians have lost lives, yes, but have you seen? There are not one rebellion against Hamas. The Palestinians, there's not one revolt. Okay, bhai, we've lost so much, let us stand up against them. They're getting us killed. No. So therefore, this is an existential situation for Israel. And what bothers me, you have had your experience in Harvard, etc. You know, in Princeton, I have worked in the Boston Globe. I've worked, even covered school committees in Salem Evening News. So I know my American. This was not the America I knew at all.
Well, the
When
people
they
of
were
America-
standing up 58.
People of America are not with the government. I mean, I think the election is having an impact on the policy itself. I think there's a relationship
Congress,
between the two.
but the instruments of the state, like for instance, the Congress, 58 standing ovations to a man who's a genocidal killer.
I was in the States recently, and the campuses there were on fire.
Yes.
All the younger generation has become totally anti-Israel, including young Jews.
Yes.
I'm in the,
Yes.
That's all reported now.
Yeah.
I think
I was-
No, I have
witnessed it
Jewish
firsthand.
friends.
Let
They are disgusted.
Let me put this straight on records, that we in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, have nothing against the Jew. And even the Jews themselves agrees and admitted that the only safeguard and interest in heaven was for them under the Islamic rule. They have never been prosecuted. They have never been killed. So we never had. They've been living among us like us. They dress up. We sit down. We have no problem. The problem started with the Nazis, with the Zionist movement
That's true.
in Europe, whom
That's
they have pushed. In fact, if you know the history, 1937, the first ship of migrant Jews came to Palestine. It was carrying the flag of the Nazi. And the Imam Mufti Amin al-Husseini of Jerusalem sent a strong letter objection to Hitler, telling him, opposing, why are you sending them to us? So if they are trying to sell to the Indian viewers that it is 2,500 years ago, our parents were here, this is our ancestor. Hello, Jericho is 11,000 years old. Where the hell were the people living in that part of the world? Why can't you read history properly? If you want only to read history to satisfy, learning no little of history is very dangerous. And there where the dangers lie.
All right, I've discussed this. I want to move to another aspect. Iran, in this situation, is not going to relent, right?
Absolutely not.
Right. Now, if this escalates from the side of Iran, what are the consequences of this in the Middle East? Because
Let me put it for you also in the perspective. Iran came to the pictures only after the Shah was removed. Iran was the watchdog of the United States in the Gulf, and
That's
they never
true.
been doing.
That's true.
The moment they have changed the Palestinian, they give embassy instead of the Israeli embassy in Tehran, Tehran become enemy, anti-Israelis. In fact, even Shah of Iran, when he went to the United States, he got a letter from the president of Israel that he's a friend of Israel. So that's fine. History is there. But now Iran have filled up the vacuum where the Arab leaders have left behind.
Correct.
In fact, the survivor of Israel, to be honest, in my view, is only surviving because of the American and because of the traitor in the Arab world. They cannot survive in the Arab world in this kind of hostility and killing, that killing spree that they have been using. I mean, there is no human to prescribe the amount of killing in that part of the world. So therefore, if you want to coexist between the Palestinian and the Israelis, you need to create a two-state solution. You need to create, to abide
Even
by
Saudi
UN
Arabia is now saying that there
Well,
has to be a state
I guess the import of Kapil's question was that is Iran going to get drawn into this conflict?
Yes, that's exactly what.
My submission is, Waiel, I don't know, John, you may agree with me, that the Iranians and the entire arc of resistance are playing a patience game. In other words, we shall coordinate. Meanwhile, we shall leave the Israelis the sleepless nights for as long as possible. We are not going to be sucked into in a hurry. Now, why do Israelis want Iranians to retaliate? Because they hope they will get Big Brother to come and back them.
That's exactly the point.
The Iranians are not asses. They know that
But
this is your game.
See, they are
so
carrying
they are
on
not
a
playing into this game.
But Saeed, they are carrying on a proxy war. That's what they are doing.
That's it.
They're getting the proxy rebels to attack in Iraq. They're having the Houthis to attack them in the
That's right.
their ships, American
that's right.
ships. That's what they're doing.
And Ben Gvir talking about northern Israel being to the Stone Ages is a
So
huge
this is going to
revelation.
escalate. What's going to happen is
Netanyahu has been trying for the last 15 years to get the Americans to fight Israel's war against Iran. He has failed. Now this is his last gambit. He wants to ignite a war with Iran so that the Americans rush in. I was in Tehran a couple of months ago, and I spoke to many of the thinkers there and think tank politicians also. They tell me that, we do not consider Israel as an enemy. Our enemy is America. Israel is too puny. You remember the missile attack they did on Israel? The so-called Iron Dome of Israel couldn't stop any of the missiles, despite American help being given. So they said this is just a trailer. Our capacity to attack, the world will be surprised. And they say Hezbollah, which is, so you say Israel now shares, Israel thinks that they share a border with us because Israel has a presence in Azerbaijan. But they say that we share the border with Israel through Lebanon.
Yes, of course.
Well, let me add two points here. One of all, if we look at the history of Netanyahu, if you go through YouTube and find out, one day he said Saddam Hussein is the most dangerous person on this world, and he was speaking at the Congress, told him if you remove him, there will be peace in the region. He did. Gaddafi had the same fate where Netanyahu was doing. He said the same thing against Iran, and they have been doing. So it is a parallel. It's nothing to do with the Gaza war. This is only the American who are trying to put pressure on the Iranian that, okay, don't attack right now. We are going for election. We may have some sort of reconciliation on a ceasefire. Iranian had made it very adamant about it that they are going to retaliate irrespective of the ceasefire.
This is what I'm worried about.
It's going to happen. Retaliate. This is your deterrence. Because
retaliation is already taking place, and you said
but not in the scale at which happening.
they are quoting the 51 article of the UN Charter, which they says they have the legitimate right to defend themselves. So if that is the issues, then Iran has nothing to do with Hamas issues on this area. They are only trying to have a ceasefire, but the attack is going to happen.
Now, will this have any impact on the Strait of Hormuz in any way, where all the oil is exported to this part of the world, including China and India?
China and India.
And the Saudis should be really worried about that.
John, you should know this because you keep all these tabs, all these figures. I read somewhere that today we are buying more oil from Russia than even China does.
We are not buying the oil from Iran anymore because of the Americans.
Because
we know about that.
As soon as Americans reimpose their sanctions, Indians were the first to stop buying oil, while China continued. China didn't bother about the UN Security, so-called UN Security Council sanctions. They kept on buying. Yes, if war happens, I mean, it's so easy to close the Straits of Hormuz.
This is the problem. As it is, ships are going via South Africa.
That's right.
I think we should not look at the war on West Asia in isolation of the conflict of interest.
That is precisely the point.
This is exactly where you wanted me to answer.
Correct.
And the answer lies actually in the fact that the American militarization of the Red Sea is already happened, where the American, the British, the French already there. So it is again against Russia, it is against China, and it is against India. That's for the future. That's what one. The second part is Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz, 34% of the oil goes to India, Korea, Japan, and all. And if one war break, and even the Iranians send messages to all the Arab capitals, if a rockets or if a one airplane or fly from any military base, you are a target. So that means the whole region will be.
South Africa is exceptionally worried about
This
it.
is everybody is worried.
Qatar also
Qatar is
exceptionally
American,
worried.
That is what I said. He's shooting at his own feet, Netanyahu, because he knows that as long as the war is on, he can stay in office. The moment he's out, as Saeed said, he's out of power. He will be in jail. He made $50 million out of the Qatari money of 200 million they paid.
Unfortunately, he is undoing the state of Israel. He knows it, he doesn't know it, but by making it an existential, this is the state of Israel, as we have noticed, the missionary zeal with which that state existed is not.
Okay,
known.
let's shift
no
to
longer. It's over.
So let's shift to something else. India, right? Our policy, Israel, what's happened?
भाई इसमें
Where are
तो
we?
बड़ा मुश्किल है हम यहाँ पे from water flowing from the dam, the north.
No, let's not talk
सुनो
about
तो, and your prime minister is doing a 10-hour ride from Moscow to Kiev.
Well,
There was an ad in the Indian Express recently for Indian helpers to Israel by the Israeli government.
No, but he's talking about the 10-hour ride of a train ride.
10-hour
But
ride
the Russians must have been told you're not going to do anything during the
Warsaw
phase of
to
this
Kiev.
10 hours.
They've gone 10 hours now. 10-hour
But
ride.
there must be an understanding with the Russians on that. There must have been an understanding with the Russians.
Obviously.
Yeah. But why are we moving away?
It has been cleared by the Russians. Otherwise, they wouldn't take this step.
That's not. I'm talking about India's policy where UN resolutions in the Security Council, resolutions in the General Assembly, right? And we're losing the leadership of the Global South. In the Security Council, after the 7th of October, when the Prime Minister made that statement, which we all know, the External Affairs Ministry did not react till the 12th of October, right? They waited. And now, of course, with the trips being made by the Foreign Minister saying that, look, we want a two-state solution, they're trying to sort of play it at both ends.
State solution where Indian policy is, I don't know. We have succeeded in building a temple in Abu Dhabi, and we are very happy about that. I think we have some kind of relationship with them, and
we have a very good
We are
relationship.
getting all sorts of technology from the Israelis. Yes. As I told you, our port is under our control. The Haifa is owned by our company, and we were actually hoping to set the scene for this New Delhi, Riyadh, Israel
the corridor you're talking
that
about.
we
East
were
Europe,
working on.
to East Europe
I think
corridor.
at the moment, that is.
Well, that's halted. Now that will not move forward for a while.
So it's not moving forward.
Don't have peace in the region. That's the problem. India is actually till now, we and the Arab world consider Indian position is a consistence with the Palestinian cause and adhering to UN Security Council resolution. That's understood. But I think the change is taking place now. Even the world perception of Israel is being changing because this amount of killing and destruction, the whole world was thinking that it was victim of the 7th October. But nobody look at the history of the Palestinian suffering for decades under the Israelis' occupation. So the moment now they realize that the amount of killing and this genocide and collective punishment of the Palestinian, the whole world is changing.
I hate to get into this. Supposing we ask ourselves, what is the average Indian reaction? Average Indian and our political reaction to what is happening in Gaza. I think we will be embarrassed. I think that will be an embarrassing question.
I'm not too sure about that.
Can I jump in? Personally, I think the Indian government's position has been shameful. I mean, they have been sending weaponry to Israel, and the war
which was stopped. Was stopped by Spaniards.
No, they're still being delivered, and Even raising a Palestinian flag now in UP and other parts of the country is now seems to be a criminal offense. Many people are
yes, you can't
arrested.
speak
Can
for
you
the-
imagine?
See, it's one thing what the official position is, it's another thing what the people feel down in their hearts. So I'm not too sure what the position is. But let me tell you, I mean, the point that I was making was, we have very good relations with Iran. We have deep interest in the region. We have the Shabar port now, and we have also very good relations with, we're trying to develop very good relations with Saudi. We're making huge investments in Saudi Arabia. Many of our companies is there. We are also part of the Quad,
Yes.
right? We are also now into U2 is also within the region is going on. So we are in a situation where we can't afford to alienate either Iran or Saudi Arabia, or for that matter, the United States, or for that matter, anybody. So we are caught in this situation. There is more defense equipment coming from Israel after Russia. Russia is the first supplier, then comes Israel. So we have deep relations with Israel. So where are we going to do? Where are we going to go in this context is the question that I was asking.
I think India is a democratic country. You cannot deny all this fact that the human right violation and you can sleep on it. That's why you said rightly, it is a people movement. We believe that the whole world is standing on its feet against Israel because of justice. They want justice to the Palestinian. And I think Indian majority enjoy and would like to support with the Palestinian.
I think
that
so.
is
This
what
is my
my
feeling.
feeling.
I'm not so sure.
That's my feeling too.
I mean,
I'm not so sure. Anyway,
You know, the RSS and the BJP, they looked at Israel as a role model. So,
No, sir, you're talking
but they are not
about,
the country.
You're talking about a
and
certain...
the bulldozer
You're
policy.
talking about a certain ideology
Yeah.
that is embraced by a certain set of people. That's not India.
Yes,
Certainly
but
not
I'm
India.
talking about this government.
Maybe
I'm
so.
talking
I was not talking
That
about
is
government.
true.
We're
That
talking
is
about
true.
people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
No,
I
no,
think
people definitely.
people anywhere in the world
Yes.
will not like what's happening
Any right
in
thinking
that
person.
part of the
This
world.
is-
Any right-thinking person.
I mean, a human being. Well, I mean, this is just be human.
And therefore, just as the US policy it's at odds with the people of the United States, I think our government's policy is also at odds with our interest in ensuring that there is peace in the region.
Well, there was a mention of the popularity of the war against Palestinian. If we look at Oslo Agreement 1993, there was 55% of the Israeli want peace with the Arab.
Yes.
With this right-wing government, with Netanyahu made even one of his activists killed Ishaq Rabin, who was the pioneer of the deal with the Palestinian and Oslo Agreement. He was killed because he was opposing, and he torn the Oslo Agreement and threw it in the dustbin. He said there is no peace with the Palestinian. So if we look from those angle, and I think that we need at least to focus more on the actual things happening on the ground. We need to build up the rally of the people. That is not the, I mean, I haven't dreamed in my history to see that some Palestinians are raped, taken videos on cameras, and they are prosecuted, the Israeli soldiers who raped them, admittedly, and then you have the Rabin, a religious leader, legitimizing the raping of Palestinians and saying that's part of the war. I mean, even ISIS, the terrorist organization, wouldn't have followed that policy.
Well, whatever it is, I think all of us would like peace to prevail in the region.
I like the Jews who live in Golders Green. They hate the Zionism, you know. There's a lot of Jewry right there, which is totally opposed to Zionism.
Nobody wants this kind of violence anywhere in the world. It impacts, you know, it's so demeaning, you know, to see this happen and the world allowing it to happen. And
But
I just
what has
hope and
happened-
pray
Look at the
that wiser
the
counsel
voices
will
against
prevail.
Netanyahu. Gideon Levy, Ilan, this fellow who's written this
Cherian
book.
Levy.
And so many people. And even the good old Chomsky, even today, I mean, he's a Jew, let's face it.
Yes,
and a
true.
whole lot of them. They
No,
all
but
are carrying on their
I think
campaign.
the situation can't remain static anymore.
won't, it
After
won't.
what happened in October, I think there has to be a solution.
There will be, and I
we
think it will
will
happen
now.
soon.
This is going to
Perhaps
be-
after the American
Yes.
elections.
That is where he's banking on Trump
Can
to come
it
back.
drag until then?
Yeah, it will.
It will. Let's hope peace prevails. Thank you very much for being here.